Well, I think it is time to get started. Hello, everyone. It's time to get started. We received a lot of inquiries about this evening being a very busy evening, so we're even videoing our conversation tonight so that we can reach even more parents than the parents we have here tonight. But we can't thank you enough for coming to talk with us about this really very, very important topic. It's a topic that is close to our hearts. It's a topic that as school staff we think about every single day, because in order for students to learn, they have to feel safe. So thank you very much. And I think because we have a very small, intimate group here tonight, it would be great for everyone to introduce yourselves and just let us know where your kids go to school in the school district. So Mr. Vignano, can we start with you?
John Vignano, I have a son in the high school and 2 in middle school.
Rosalie Pasco, school board, and I have a granddaughter in high school and in the middle school.
Jonathan Cooley, got 3 kids at Custer.
And I'm Tracy Cooley. Cindy Taylor, and I'm a board member, and I don't know.
Right.
Kathy Amy is a finance director for the school district, and my graduated
I'm Cindy Flynn. I am the Executive Director of Human Resources for Monroe Public Schools. And I have a grandson at Manor Elementary and a granddaughter at Monroe High School.
Terry Atkins, my son is in 10th grade at Monroe High School.
Janice Navarre, my son is in 10th grade as well.
I'm Kim Vanderbilt. I'm the District Climate Engagement Liaison for Monroe Public Schools.
I'm Darren Poach. I'm the president of the teacher union.
Kim has a senior this year.
And I do, and I have a senior.
Nice. And Darren, what year?
2 seniors.
2
Son and
seniors.
stepson graduating this year, and another stepchild also at Monroe High. So, and I teach at Custer School.
I'm Navarre Gilbert. I'm student service provider at Monroe Elementary School.
Scott Hopper, I'm the principal at Raisonville School, and I have a daughter who's at Monroe High School in the most side classroom, and a proud graduate. I'm Ian Hopper, I'm the community engagement coordinator, and I am the proud graduate.
Brian Shanson, City Monroe Police Department. I am one of 2 school resource officers for Monroe Public Schools.
And I'm Julia Burley. I'm the proud superintendent of the district, and I'm also a parent in the district. My daughter is in 9th grade at Monroe High School. My other son is now in the 11th. So tonight, we have a couple of different goals that I thought I'd share with you. Our first goal is to share the survey that so many community members graciously took. And that way we can know what the results look like. And then we wanted to enter into a conversation about those results and really hear what's on your mind. What are you thinking about is in terms of school safety? What questions do you have? And we really appreciate engaging in those conversations, because every time we do have a conversation about school safety, we continuously make improvements. We're really proud of the systems we have in place. But when we can engage in conversations with community, we learn more and we get even better than what we were the day before. And then, as part of that, we wanted to open some talk time and conversation time up to our panel members here, because each one of them represents an aspect of the school district that is very critical to student safety. And they're here as representatives of the bigger staff that we have here in Monroe Public Schools. So that's our agenda. It's very much intended to be conversational. So if you have any questions during time with the survey or then after, please feel free to jump in and just give me a sign. Okay, So we engaged in the Monroe Minute School Safety Survey a few months ago, and we typically see just shy of 1,000 responses. We saw over 2,000 responses to this survey. So we're really excited about that. So the survey, we use that Survey Monkey, so you can take it online, you can take it from your smartphone, your iPad, your desktop, and we were really pleased with the results. Interestingly, our students responded, there were quite a few numbers of students, over 1,000 students, 858 community members, and 220 staff responses. And we intentionally included all of those in the data that you're going to see. So it's really a balance of many different age groups in our Monroe community. So these are the questions that we really wanted to glean some information on. We have done a lot of research as a district as far as what kind of practices have been researched as far as what is best in these areas, but we wanted to kind of weigh that information with what you wanted as our community. So to make sure that we were implementing strategies that directly service Monroe residents and Monroe parents and families. So here we go. These are the distribution of different roles that were represented in the answers. You can see the largest population was parents of current Monroe Public Schools students, which we would expect, but we were really pleased to see the high numbers of parents who are alumni, actual MPS alumni taking the survey, 242 of those, and our grandparents had 56 grandparents of MPS students, and then even aunts and uncles, and also involved community members, 212, where they did not have children in the schools, they did not have family members in the schools, but they just cared so much about this topic. So we asked on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest, rate how each of these measures that your school already has in place are keeping our schools safe. So really trying to get at what do people see as the most valuable things that we do to help keep our children safe. And these are the results of those. So you can see that really one thing we learned is, gosh, everybody thinks all of these things are really important. The graph is really, they're all very close to each other. The highest was all outside doors being locked during instructional time, classroom doors being locked, but really it wasn't the highest by that much. So all of the strategies that we've implemented are important to our community. This is, it's interesting, so this is what our kids thought, our students thought. So they agreed with the adults. They said oh, I'm sorry, they didn't. They had something else rated high, the video camera surveillance. So our students thought that the cameras were the best strategy that we've implemented so far to keep our schools safe. But even there, you can see there's very little variation between one strategy to the next. So they too value all of those safety measures.
I noticed, Julie, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, no.
Students' responses is what I love the best. And the one thing, they love the fact that there was a police presence. That was high.
That came out really high. So all of the students, in addition to his wonderful personality, along with Deputy Hammond's wonderful personality, the students do associate having a police presence in our buildings is, with safety and feeling safe. Any other noticings or comments or questions? Yes, so far. Thank you, Rosalie. So, and this is the staff responses. So it's interesting, the video cameras came up very high on the staff response, followed by the positive learning environment with caring and supportive staff. So much as you can imagine, so we review school safety, research, one of the things that we hear over and over and over again is about relationships. And students feeling safe to go to someone at school and talk to them about a potential safety issue. So that definitely our staff notices that. So then we shifted to, the following updates that Monroe Public Schools could take in keeping our schools safe. So we talked about first what we had in place, and then we asked people to dream with us and decide what would you do next. So our community members talked about updating our PA systems and allowing external access. So a lot of our PA systems in the school district are the original PA systems. And so if you think back to when we were in school, their main purpose was to read the announcements to students so that the building could say the Pledge of Allegiance together, perhaps make a quick announcement before lunchtime. And now the need has really shifted, and a lot of our PAs have areas that are areas where the PA doesn't reach in the building. So for instance, in the cafeterias of our schools, it's really hard to hear the PAs. So our community members recognize that, but I also think a big piece of this was that idea of external control of the PA. So they really valued having another agency like law enforcement having the capacity to assume control of the PA and make announcements within the building. So actually that one had a little bit more spread than the other, but it was only second to, it just was a little bit over more security personnel. Really low on this one was allowing staff members to carry firearms. So we don't have much support for that at all in our community. So then here is what our students said. So the students think the next big improvement that we should consider is bulletproofing windows and doors. And I think this is significant for a lot of reasons. One, first and foremost, I think it lets us know what they're worried about and what they're thinking about. So, and it was really close to that one is making sure all visitors are directed to the main office. So they have grown to really appreciate this idea of during our school hours, we don't want just anyone walking in and out of our school. Like we want to know, we feel secure if we know they've checked into the main office. And the lowest one, let's do the lowest one too. The lowest one was the metal detectors with the students. So that was interesting. So then the staff, drastically low on the staff's response was allowing staff members to carry firearms. So our professionals really do not feel that would be very helpful at all. And they too agree with the PA system. So that red bar with the 8.5, one of the highest, is is the PA system. But you can see on both of the one before this and on this one, other than the outliers that are really low, those bars are pretty close to each other. So there was still, a significant number of survey participants who really value the ALICE training. And they really value the security personnel and creating this entrances with vestibules. That's one thing we've talked a lot about, is because we need people to check in at the office, and that's the best way we can control who gets to classrooms and who doesn't. Our buildings, many of them were built at a time when this wasn't something that we thought about at all. So when you envision the entrances, we've had to really do a lot of work to try to position people to not get past the offices. And I'm really proud of the staff with the time and effort that they spend on that. In many of the schools, the move they've made is to construct vestibules that are locked, and you do all of your check-in procedure, you do all of your identity scanning in that locked vestibule, and then there's a buzzer lock release that allows people then into the building. So there's no gaining entrance until you're buzzed in after that, check in that vestibule. So one of the things that we find, regardless of what type of incident it is, whether it's we have flooding and the students are going to be late getting home, to we have someone who brought something inappropriate to school today and the students are talking about it and we need you to know about it, is we've had many conversations with parents about what is the best way for us to communicate with you? What exactly do you want to know? And how do we let you know it in a way that is effective so that you can be ready for your children to come home? So in this one, the community members, it was really clear what they prefer. So they prefer the school messenger call outs with full details and the text messages. Other things like the email and the website and social media notification, when it comes to matters of safety, people really wanted that phone call or wanted that specific text message. Whereas with things that we're celebrating, and when we've surveyed, other topics that aren't as critical, they really like it on Facebook, or they like it when we send out an email. But this is really clear. And so we've made some adjustments actually this year, and Andrew takes care of our communication pieces. We've made a lot of adjustments about how we construct messages, what details we put in the message, where does the message go? And so we have had some real positive feedback on that, but we're really interested to hear what you might think about that too. So then, one of the most insightful part of any survey is when there is not really a question, but people really get to share their thoughts. And we gave them some starters to get the thinking going. So what is the most important step our school community can take in improving our school safety protocols? So these are the themes that really emerged from all three of the groups. So the students, really consistent with their survey answer, more officers, and that's actually part of some proposed legislation in our state right now and in our country. So they like the ALICE training. I think it raises their confidence. They know what to do should they be faced with the challenge of safety. And they really like it that we're calling you. Like they want you to know about what's happening in school. And then of course there's locking the doors. I think the community members, they took that a step further. And one of the things that came up over and over and over again, in addition to the things that were in the survey, was the idea of how do we provide more mental health service for kids who are in need of that? How do we make sure that we deliver that to them early, really early? And the staff, they, I think their perspective was coming from the procedures that they have to go through when they're going to have field trips and events in their classroom, where we have big events at schools like field days and celebrations. And that was more around, let's keep doing those background checks. So I think we, given how dedicated our staff is, everyone knows it's a lot of passing out of background checks, a lot of collecting. Our secretaries run them one by one, and then we maintain a database. But everybody here wants to do that. And we do it for every event we have in our school. The mental health services, and again, they wanted to reiterate, and we've heard this loud and clear from students, staff, and community members, they really don't want weapons in the schools. They don't feel that that's the answer. So our panel members are kind of going to talk about some next steps that they are seeing from their perspective, groups that they work in the district. And one of the things that Brian has led, along with Joe Hammond, who is our school resource officer at Monroe High School, is our ALICE training. And so Brian has talked with several groups about what is ALICE, why did we choose ALICE, and I thought it would be helpful for him to just give us a little bit of that information tonight. But it really, you know, when you think about what our children have to be ready for, this is so much bigger than a school issue. When you consider the events in the news at sporting arenas and concert halls and malls. So the ALICE training is something that we feel that it's a life skill for our students. Brian, could you just give a little bit of a synopsis of that?
Absolutely. So, what ALICE is an acronym, ALICE. It's not a linear progression. These things don't have to be done in order, but it stands simply for alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. Okay, obviously what we want to do if there is an active threat, active shooter situation that takes place at any of our schools or any, you know, educational facility or soft target, if you will, a mall, a church, we want people to get out. We want to give somebody an option so that they can leave. And what ALICE does, or its sister programs like Run, Hide, Fight, is it gives students and staff an option other than just sitting in that classroom waiting for something to happen to them. We want them to get out, we want them to leave if they can. With the lockdown portion of ALICE, it also gives them the option to barricade themselves into the room if they don't have the option to get out. So like this classroom or this choir room, for example, like I would be grabbing filing cabinets, whatever they have, that's why that one's situated so close to the door, throw it in front of the door, make it as difficult for that bad guy to come into that classroom as possible. And again, a lockdown is only as a last resort. A lot of times you hear lockdown drills, lockdown procedures, and things of that nature. Actually, locking down is a last resort. You have no other option. You have to barricade yourself in that classroom. Ultimately, we want everybody out of the building as far away from the threat as possible. ALICE has been rolled out to all staff in Monroe Public Schools. It has been rolled out to all students at the high school and all students at the middle school. One of the things when I gave my presentation to the middle school students was I offered out for the very next TFT or Trojan Family Time, which is like a homeroom here at the middle school, was for students to communicate back with their teachers, you know, some questions that they might have. And the most common question that I got was, when do we get to practice this? When do we get to do this? So these are things that our kids are thinking about. They already know that this is a possibility that it might happen in their building, and it doesn't have to be them constantly thinking about somebody's gonna come in and shoot up my school, or somebody's gonna come in with a knife and try to hurt me. This is for any emergency situation really that might be taking place. Our kids are thinking about it. They're wanting to know when they can do it, how they can do it, and they're just like yearning for more information to be given to them so that they can know how to protect themselves and their classmates as well. With the alert portion of Alice, an alert can be anything from a student yelling that there's a gunman in the building to them receiving it, over the PA system or a text message. However we have to get that information out, they'll be alerted. The information, we are going to give out as much information as we possibly can to everybody who needs it. So parents, grandparents, community members included, you are going to get everything up to date as we possibly can as to what's going on and where it's going on, because there's reunification points that we have to get out. When something like this happens, people have a tendency to respond to that location where that threat or situation is taking place. That's not where we want people to come. I promise you, within a half to 1 mile radius of this location, if something happened at this middle school, you're not getting anywhere near it. It's not going to happen. So we don't want people to all trying to be coming here when we're trying to get people out. Okay, so all this information will be given to you as fast as we possibly can. One thing that I get a lot of questions, comments, or concerns about is the counter portion of Alice. At no point in time would I ever ask any of the students or staff members in any of these buildings to go seek out and find the bad guy. A counter is after you've barricaded, you're locked down, you have no other option, bad guys coming into that classroom, coming into wherever you are. It gives kids an option to, and staff as well, to let them know that they can fight back. What's a weapon that these kids have in these classrooms, every single one of them? A Chromebook. If you launch 30 Chromebooks at a bad guy's head, you're going to mess his day up, okay? And these are things that children and staff need to be aware of, that they have options, they can do these things. So that's basically what Alice is, very brief rundown of what it is and how we've implemented and rolled it out. It can be used from preschool up to, seniors, college. If I went to any college campus right now across this country and I pulled a fire alarm, I can guarantee you that every single kid on that college campus would know how to react and where to go. If we had a severe weather or tornado drill, I can guarantee you they're going to know how to react and what to do. A lot of the kids in the country right now that are going off into the world don't know how to react to these situations, these emergencies, these threats, these active shooters, because they've never been taught, they've never been told. A big part of what we do here is preparing our young people to go out into the world. This is an unfortunate circumstance that we have to deal with in our world today, but it is preparing them, whether they're at a mall, a concert, church, any soft target that you could possibly think of. We can give them any tools to know, and maybe they'll be a leader and save countless lives one day because they've been able to tell, hey, we can get out, we can leave here, we don't have to sit here and take this. Alice is fantastic. It just happens to be what the majority of schools in Michigan have elected. Again, Ohio does run, hide, fight, the exact same principle. You're trying to get away from the threat. If you can't get away, you hide. If hiding isn't enough anymore, then you fight. The same thing with Alice. Again, not a linear progression. No directions are going to be given to anybody at the time of an active threat or situation. They're all just going to have to go based off of their training and instincts as to what they think is best for them in that moment. If anybody has any questions about Alice or our response to that, I'd be more than happy to answer. Yes, sir.
How often do you practice it?
So we have, I believe it's 3 mandatory lockdown drills a year. Okay, and when we do the drills, they vary as to how in-depth the staff wants to get with their students. So usually from 10 to 15 minutes here at the middle school, we'll go into the lockdown drill. Usually the principal or assistant principal will get on the PA and announce, this is a drill, this is a drill, this is a drill. At this time, we'll be activating our emergency response procedure. Please go into Alice or lockdown mode, whatever his cue card tells him that he has to say by the state or whatever to do the drill. So 3 times a year we do it. And then the teachers typically have a conversation in that classroom. We try to make sure that they take place at different times during the day for each drill, so that you're in a different room and you're having a different conversation and you know how to react when you're in that room, where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, things of that nature. So we do 3 a year.
Although the Alice principle is the same across the district, the drills look different because the schools physically are so different. Some schools have really big lots of land around them. Other schools are situated in city blocks. Some schools have multiple floors, this one being the most, with 4, and many of our buildings are 1 floor. So it really is customized to the building.
So 3 times a year we do it, and then like I said, I gave that presentation, it was about 2 months ago now. And then they were able to go back and talk with their TFTs about it. And I think we plan on continuing that, but getting it up and running much sooner and get it out to the kids at the start of the year. Probably do a couple of refreshers throughout the year where I get up there and give my presentation, because a lot of their, like I said, frequently asked questions that kids had were, when do we get to practice? Another one was, what happens if I'm in the hall and something happens, or I'm in a bathroom, I'm not in a classroom, I'm not with my classmates. So this will all be stuff that I'll be able to cover with them in the future, and I've rolled out to them responses to their questions as best as I could. But 3 times a year, short answer, I guess.
I like the idea that you're gonna expand it out to different rooms of the school. One of the things that we were thinking about too is the large room, the cafeterias and the auditorium. There's different escape routes than what the kids do.
Get out, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, but I mean, we have very innocent kids,
Right.
you know, and
Right.
Would you like me to share like with the high school?
Sure.
In the cafeteria, there's 2 options, egress to evacuate, depending on where the shooter is, or to take them to the auditorium, lock them in there, and then there's egress out the back, you know, as guidance is given. And we do a drill during lunch.
okay, good.
Yeah, we do that. And this was really neat. The students, they designed our last lockdown drill. And how we did that, after Parkland, I had some students come in, very shook, you know, says, Krebs, we don't think we really know what to do, even though we've done these drills. So I said, well, how can we improve that? So from that conversation, this is what resulted from those students, you know, being candid with their fears. We did similar during TFT, we did class meetings led by Deputy Keenan, ninth grade Keenan in the auditorium. He took them through Alice, just basic information that we go over, but it doesn't sink in. Now they're listening, you know, they realize this really is a possibility. So from that session, the freshmen went back to TFT, the next one, and then they wrote all their questions they still had. We had a shared document in Google, and if you're not familiar with it, everyone can see it, and especially us. So then the sophomores had their lesson, went back to TFT the next week. By the end, we had a long document of all these questions they still had. And Joe Hammond and the APs, we went through and answered every one. And then we kept it separated by TFT so all those questions could be met, because you know, you might have thought of something they didn't, and they wanted to share that. Then we took as many of the things they didn't know, felt they, like encounter, they weren't sure what that would mean to them, or barricade, or just some of the basic things. So we had a drill that incorporated as many as we could without looking like a garage sale, you know, that it had purpose to it. And we actually had one wing evacuate. We had, you know, different scenarios going on so they could actually go through it. And from their input, they wanted to have a basket in each classroom with things in there that they could counter with. They had some great suggestions, and so we're still processing all of that and implementing it into future things. Because one student said, and this just got me, and I thought, this is because this is what they're hearing, and it's true. He said, Mrs. Krebs, that shooter was on the FBI list. He was on the watch list, and he still did it. If the FBI can't stop him, you know, how can we? So that's our world. You know, as Deputy has said, it's everywhere. So we're doing the best we can.
So at your lunches at any given time, how many kids are in the common team?
450.
450 kids. So here it's anywhere between 125 to 275 during the lunch. I like my odds. One bad guy, 250 kids. I mean, you have better chances of surviving in a cafeteria or an auditorium with that many kids in there than you do with no other options.
I'm sorry to interrupt, just really point out the mindset shift for teachers from the early days of lockdown drills. It's really been like, when I think about myself as a teacher here in this building and the kinds of training that we went through, and the mindset was hunker down, lock the door. And so I honestly think it's liberating for our staff to feel like they have options, to feel like they can act and not be passive. We have lots of conversations about what can we do? What action can we take to keep our kids safe? And I think that's a really phenomenal kind of mind shift.
See, Alice came about after Columbine, when those kids were trapped in that media center under the tables. The thinking was, it's harder because they're not marksmen. most of the shooters. Now, the one in Las Vegas sounded like he might have been, but in the schools, and it's harder to hit a moving target if they run. So that was the thinking behind Alice, when it was from Columbine, where they were sitting ducks to being mobile. Something would it help, the parent leadership team thought, when we met 2 times ago, he said, Cindy, it's not just really important for the students to know this. We as parents want to know what Alice is, because you could be in the supermarket, you could be in the post office. So we'd like to build an educational piece in it for parents that you can reinforce it at home. But as Debbie said, it's a skill for life for all of us, not just in the school. Would you agree? Would that be beneficial to learn, those procedures? So that came from the parent, please.
Yeah, 2 last thoughts. No disrespect, I can appreciate the statistical side of that, but I don't think our kids can, what their odds would be. So we gotta remember to train at their level. The other side of this too, expanding the training hour, I think would be great for the parents. But I know in the last girl here, our daughter had a substitute teacher, and the substitute teacher did not know that. You gotta make sure that you train out whoever your counselor is, the teacher, the substitute teachers, make sure they know what they're doing.
We're looking at, we recognize that potential gap, and we're looking for other potential gaps. One of the things we're looking at, and this ties to Mrs. Flynn's HR work, is an onboarding, a digital onboarding system that would have required videos to watch before someone could begin work in a school. So we agree with that practice. When you have the scenario coming at you, you're really in the environment, certainly that's the best practice. But we do want to make sure that we don't have a gap with substitute teachers, but also substitute assistants, substitute custodians, substitute secretaries, because in a situation of crisis, each one of those people is so important. And I know, Scott, from an elementary perspective with an Alice situation,
Yeah.
is there anything that you would like to share?
Sure, so the additional factor that we face is when you think about kids not understanding the math, what their odds are. We have kids, it's important to tailor the training to their level so they understand. It's also really important for little kids to be able to listen and stay calm and follow directions, because teachers then become more than ever a lifeline. Older kids can make these decisions, like they take action. Little kids need to be guided. So we recently took a really hard look at our lunch and recess procedures, especially at Raisin, because we're in the middle of a cornfield. So what do you do? Like, where can kids go? Where do teachers take kids? What do you do when our cafeteria has like 3 different options of escape? So it's really important for adult leaders to understand what their options are and what really important, crucial decisions they're making, because they're being asked to decide. Can I get 30 kids out that door before someone comes down the hallway? So those are really, and when you're outside with kids at recess, which is a really important consideration, where can they go? And what do we do to make sure that everybody stays safe and stays together? Where are the rendezvous points? How do law enforcement and first responders know where those rendezvous points are? So Deputy Hammond and I have had numerous conversations and visits and walkthroughs to really determine what these procedures are. We make our assistants aware, train them in the cafeteria and lunchroom and recess procedures, so that we are all confident we can keep our kids safe.
And from the classroom perspective, Darren is here tonight. He has taught a variety of elementary grades.
Almost all of
Almost
them.
all of them. Which one haven't you taught?
Kindergarten and 6th.
Maybe next year, Darren. So from the classroom perspective, I think that's so important too, because our teachers really are at the front line of keeping the students safe. I mean, we can set up a lot of procedures, but really it's that if it would come down to a situation like that, most often kids are going to look to their teachers. I love the word lifeline, Scott, that's well chosen. But you want to talk about, like, when you're in the classroom and we're practicing, like what do you hear and see from students and notice?
one of the challenges that we face during drills with young kids is that it's hard for them sometimes to, one of the biggest challenges for me as a teacher is that when you do the drills, I always try to say to them, we need to treat this like it's a real situation. And even if we're practicing for a tornado, oftentimes kids will get in their tornado place and like they want to be silly or they want to poke with their friend or they want, this is an opportunity to giggle. And we have to remind our students that I say to them, listen, if you would look out the window and see a tornado bearing down at Custer, nobody would be giggling with each other right now. Nobody would be poking and touching, and nobody would want to, laugh with their friends and, make light of this. So one of the bigger challenges with the younger children is to keep them aware that we have to do this, and then also have them take it seriously without scaring them at the same time. It's a very fine line to tread with young kids, because you want them to take it serious, but you also don't want them to be walking around in a panic all the time. Especially, now I have 4th and 5th graders this year, so you can have that conversation at a higher level. I haven't taught 1st grade in many years, and I wonder what that would look like with 6 and 7-year-old children, and how I think they would tend to be a little bit more cooperative, because at that age they will listen to their teachers a little better, and be a little more compliant. The older kids, sometimes it's harder to get them to draw that line between, listen, we need to take this seriously, and we also need to make sure that you're practicing this like it's a real thing. When my students are drilling, I ask them questions. What would you do if this happened? What would you do if this situation happened? And I try to engage them in a conversation during the drill. And I was able to participate a few years ago in a full-on active Alice training session where we actually pretended an intruder was in the building. And what are we supposed to do? And we had people pretend to be intruders. I pretended to be an intruder. And we were going through, what do you actually do? So as a staff member, I feel, you never know what's going to happen if the moment strikes, but at least I feel a lot more secure in the notion, as Andrew said, that it's not just hide and hope nobody shows up and tries to infiltrate your classroom. We're in a drill, look around my room, I have a Chromebook charging thing I could put in front of my desk. We have things that we could use. So you try to inform the students, but you also want to do it at a point where you also don't scare them. And it is difficult. It's difficult to tread that line. Take it seriously, but don't be afraid. This is school. We're supposed to be here to enjoy ourselves and learn, but we also need to be safe.
Any questions about Alice? It really is a big piece of her safety.
Question. We were talking a lot about drills and the procedures. Have we ever had an active threat at the high school that had to be physically removed? Was there ever like a real danger?
No, not since I've been here either. Been here a long time too.
The closest thing that Monroe Middle School had, I was a principal here a few years ago. There was a brick, a person came in the main office with a brick and was threatening, and teachers intercepted the individual along with the principal, but that was even before I was here. And then we had a bank robbery that was the bank over here, and the bank robber, Mr. Hopper and I were man in the fort, but the bank robber ran this way, so we had to go in lockdown. They were out combing the vicinity. I would assume.
Right, they were assuming that. And that's, I guess this is a good place to emphasize to our partnerships that we have in our community. If there is anything that happens in the city of Monroe that poses a threat anywhere around a school building, Brian is calling me, we're calling the principal, we're sending officers to the scene. Like we knew that day that Cindy's speaking of, there was an officer here. Sometimes we have alerts where there might be a custody dispute. And there is suspicion that someone who's not at the school may come. Well, at that time, usually the principal will call either Mrs. Joseph or myself, and then we dispatch Officer Wins Jansen or Officer Hammond to the appropriate school, even just in case. Yep, but we have not
And some,
had a threat inside of the school.
some, I don't know, call it false alarms. There have been 2 social media posts that said Monroe High. And it was in a different state, but our students didn't know that. We have, building that rapport where students can report that trust. The students are out of the woodwork, making sure we know, wondering if it's us, and thank goodness both when ran to the ground by law enforcement. It wasn't our high school. So it's kind of good to know everybody's watching, because it's all of our responsibility. Not one person can catch everything, so that was reassuring. And just see everybody looking out for a possibility.
Sure. And I know you probably received a call from us or a message from us if a student has brought something inappropriate to school. And I will just add here that that is such a big piece of the conversation. More important than any protocol, more important than anything that we could put into place is talking with our children and letting them know that if you even hear of a threat to safety, if you think you saw it but you're not even sure, report it to somebody. Because in every incident that we've contacted parents at a particular school about this year, it has always been a student report, a student who went up to the teacher and said, on the bus, I heard these other kids talking about these other kids, but report. It's okay if it's not true. Report. Also, just thinking about the school safety incidents that have happened in our country, one of the things in school safety literature has become a big focus on social emotional health, on mental health. And we, in Monroe Public Schools, this is a big area of that we are becoming rigorous with. We already are rigorous with it, and we're becoming even more rigorous with it. And Navarre and Kim represent what we have here is a social emotional team. And so we made a move a few years ago to make sure that we had social workers in every single building and to have a role that we call a positive climate liaison role in every single building. The social worker role is obvious usually. They talk with students and work with small groups of students. They take referrals from teachers. And they have activities with students around their social emotional learning. The positive climate person, they look at attendance as one of their pieces, but they also try to work with the principals, the teachers, and the students to generate positive activities in the school community. So one of the things we know about perpetrators of school violence is that they often are detached and they don't feel like they belong in the school. So our positive climate liaisons are really reaching out and trying to engage students who might appear not engaged. Get them involved in something that they love. Connect them with other kids so that friendships develop. And Navarre and Kim work with those staff members every day. So I wondered if you could just give a few examples of some of the things that you're working on right now.
Personally, at Waterloo, I facilitate some social emotional based small groups. It can consist of social skills, developing them, maintaining them, anger management, recognizing your emotions, and finding ways to regulate them. We're actually connecting with some outside agencies such as Family Counseling Shelter Services, and we actually have a weekly program, for example, an art-based emotional intelligence group. Of course, we have in-class larger group discussions on safety and emotions and social situations, how to advocate for yourself, how to problem solve.
Thank you, Bernard. If you would talk about the climate.
Sure. So climate liaisons, one of the things is that they work on that school climate, and often people will say, well, what does that mean? You know, are they working the thermostat there? But it's really taking a temperature of the school as far as, is it welcoming? Does everyone feel safe? Does everyone feel valued? Does everyone feel engaged? So climate liaisons have the best job. They make school fun. They are rewarding kids for good behavior, for great attendance, and also trying to make sure that they engage families as well. Julie mentioned that they work with attendance, and they do. That's a great indicator to see, to identify students who are not engaged. Something must be going on, that they're not attending, and so we dig into that. We reach out to families to make sure they're feeling welcomed and that they're feeling engaged. We let them know about different activities that are going on in the school, and try to get students engaged with like setting up clubs or maybe some lunch groups where we can start building some friendships for those families.
The most exciting new developments that we just had a press conference on today that we're really excited to roll out for next school year is the introduction of a telehealth program in our school district. So in partnership with ProMedica and the ISD and our county health department, we're going to be opening